All right, I'd like to call the regular council meeting back to order. And we will move on to adoption of minutes, regular council meeting minutes from Wednesday, February 17th for adoption.
I'll move adoption.
Second.
Okay, and any questions, comments on that? All in favor? Okay, that's adopted. Thank you. And we will move to the consent agenda. So if we have a
Move
a
receipt.
move receipt of all of them and a seconder.
Second.
Okay, and now do we have anyone that wants to have any of them pulled out? We need a motion for those. So, okay, sorry, Councillor Swift, and then McKenna, I think.
I'd like letter E from Peter Bolton pulled out.
E, okay, letter E, Councillor. Okay, so so then do we have a seconder for letter E?
Second.
Okay, and for discussion. Councillor Swift, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't think we're ready to get into a full discussion regarding dog parks and dog auctions. But I wanted it pulled out simply because years ago, I heard about the consideration of having the options of times in parks for off leash and on leash and so on. And at the time I thought it was kind of silly, but now I'm thinking, it might be a way to have a compromise that might work in that, you know, you can have off leash from 8 to 10 in the morning and then 4 to 6 or 4 on in the afternoon. And the rest of the time would be leash on. And in any event, the reason I'm even going there is I thought it might be worth exploring the idea. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea or if anybody's heard of any other place trying it. But if staff, when they're putting a report together regarding parks and so on, might put that as a consideration as part of the report.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? So just to confirm, Councillor Swift, you're saying, so in the park, for the off-leash park, there would be times where the dogs would be leashed and then leashed? I wasn't quite getting that.
No, we had asked staff to examine all our parks and have a look at maybe making some of them off leash. And so I know the Northeast Woods one is controversial and let's leave that one out. But I have a problem with just having parks where people are afraid to go. So I'm just wondering if that might be a solution.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's part of the report going forward is just a timetable, I guess.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments on that one? All in favor? Okay, thank you. And Councillor McKenna, you wanted to pull one out?
Yeah, I could pull out any letter from B. So you can pull the first one. I just want to have a conversation.
From B, did you
Yeah.
say? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. All
Yes.
right.
Boy.
So, seconder on that one?
Second.
All right. So for discussion, go ahead, Councillor McKenna.
Thanks. As a former RV owner, it is a definite challenge if you do not have the ability to dump your sewage. And I didn't realize that the Comox Valley didn't have any place that you could easily, exercise that right as an owner. And, I think with the influx of camping, with the influx of more and more and more RVs on the road, there's a real danger that people will dump their raw sewage, into an inappropriate area. So my hope would be that we could refer to staff to talk to the other municipalities to see if there's a solution. I also love the idea of a couple of the letters where utilizing the visitor center as a potential option. But I'll leave it at that. I think it's a problem that we should look at.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have Councillor Swift and then Grant.
Go ahead.
Hi, just so you know, the CVRD, the Sewage Commission, is looking into a location for Sandy Dam. And so it's in the works. And I guess the biggest issue is just location. And I love that suggestion of the visitor center. So we'll have to see what happens with that going forward.
Councillor Grant?
I was just going to say the same thing, but I can actually, or anyone who wants to, I guess, Doug Hillian's the chair. So I think, Russ, you were just mentioning you'd sent a suggestion on a while back and then didn't hear anything. So maybe it's time to just have a chat with Doug and say, here's a couple of ideas for you. Because you mentioned the gas and go on the dike was a possibility. And,
yeah.
and I thought the visitor center, like Pat and Maureen too. So maybe next time I see Doug, I'll just put the bug in his ear for him.
Yeah, it was about, it would have been over a year ago where I consulted with Mr. Wayne Proctor, who owns the Gas and Goes, and he was open to the possibility of having sandy dumps. And he said that he would engage with the RD. He would talk with the RD if they engaged with him, and I passed that on to the then chair, and obviously nothing has come of that. So maybe perhaps we will move it on to Councillor Hillian. Okay, yeah, this reminds me, Councillor McKenna, of the National Lampoon movie, so we don't want to have a reoccurrence of that. So do we have another hand up? Councillor, or Minions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it might have been said already and I missed it, but I think with the report, they did say they're about 18 months out from that happening through the CVRD. So potentially having those private conversations might be worthwhile now, as we might miss 2 summers potentially. But Chris LaRose did say they thought they were 18 months out from something being even started, which could be longer.
Okay, thank you. And any other questions on this, comments? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Do we have any other ones that we want to pull out? Seeing none, then okay, so we will move on to unfinished business, and that is the strategic planning and action items from March 3rd be received.
Second.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, for receipt, thanks. And the 2021 road resurfacing projects. This is to provide a summary of the investigation into specific road resurfacing projects to be included in the 2021 financial plan. We have a couple recommendations, and those are that following the asphalt and sidewalk replacement projects included in the 2021 to 2025 financial plan presented to council on February 3rd be deferred to beyond 2025. This is Downey Avenue from Aiken to Rodello and Rodello Street from Downey to Robb.
So I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay, open for discussion, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, so thanks for the report. You gave me something to do last Saturday, so I drove around all these streets that you had on this list and on the other one, and some of those roads are in a lot worse shape than I would have thought. So I guess the only question I have on these two in particular, and I guess on all of them, is what's the substructure like underneath this? Are we in danger of maybe losing the underneath of the road, or is it already gone and beyond the point where we're going to have to rebuild the whole thing? Because I know that's a big consideration when you're doing roads. So maybe a little bit of info from the staff just to tell us just what we might be getting into when we defer these till later.
So I guess to the engineer, Shelley Ashfield.
Right,
yeah. You're able to speak to that, Shelley?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I might just refer it to Craig. I think he went out and had a closer or look at the roads. So I'll let Craig answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have actually the CAO and I took a drive a couple of weeks ago and had a look at the roads. The ones that I'm concerned about are Cook, and Mackenzie. Those are the two big ones that I'm concerned about. And then the two cul-de-sacs on Gull are both quite old, and they've got some pretty major alligatoring, which would lead to water being able to get into the substructure. The roads, Rodello and Downey, seem to be in fairly good condition with minor alligatoring, and I really do think that they can last the 5 years without any degradation.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Councillor McGowan?
Yeah, I was just wanted to clarify, this isn't the road that or the Rodello that we were looking at for sidewalks, right?
This is Rodello between Downey and Robb, and there's already sidewalks on both sides.
That's perfect. That's what I thought. Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, Craig, that was Rodello between Downey and Robb. There's only sidewalk on one side.
For part of it, there is sidewalk on both sides. The top, the north portion of it definitely has both sides.
Downey. Okay, Downey is down towards now by the school there.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? You know, my concern is I do live in the area. I walk those areas all the time. And what I'm noticing in Comox is the older areas are getting older fast. And I'm afraid that if we keep pushing these things off, that we're going to get past the point of no return really quick. You walk down there, there's the sidewalks, there's some upheaval on them, there's grinding out of them. I'm not in favor of pushing anything back. I think we need to tackle these things, especially in the older parts of Comox. So, but we do have recommendation, and then we have the alternatives to the recommendation. So CAO, do you just want to deal with this first one? We have this first recommendation from Downey to Avenue to Aiken and Rodello from Downey to Robb, or do we want to do them all? How do you want to work this?
So you have the motion on the floor right now as is. What you can do is you can call for those two roads to be separated and voted on individually. That would be up to you as the chair, or an individual member of council could request that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think we need to break them out into two.
Okay, so that would be your ruling as the chair. So you would just need to read the motion that is going to be dealt with right now.
Okay, so if I may, the motion is already on the table for the recommendation. I'm not sure what you're referring to the others. There are no others in this recommendation.
Well, we have the alternative. So Craig was mentioning about the cul-de-sacs and so on. So those are not on the table. Then we will continue working on those as per the capital plan.
But the only two we're deferring are these two. We're not saying only pave these two. We're saying drop these two and pave all the rest.
Good. I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, so nothing further, then all in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed. All right, thank you very much. And I just have to zoom back up here. Okay, so
Mayor,
under...
Did you get me in favor or opposed? Sorry, I had a bit of lag there on my internet.
I had you as opposed?
No, I'm in favor.
Oh, you're in favor. So 5 in favor.
I was in favor as well. I think mine might have been lapsed there.
Yeah, okay.
In favor.
So I'm opposed, saying that I think we need to tackle these things now. So, all right, thank you. Under new business, the planning report, PR 21-2, and this is standard stuff, annual referrals to school districts. So we have a recommendation there.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, and any questions on that? Councillor McGowan?
Just wondering if we've heard from the superintendent or anybody from School District 71 yet.
CAO?
Well, I'll refer that over to Shelley.
Shelley Ashfield, have you heard anything from the school on this?
No updates as of yet. They're still working on the survey, I believe.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments on this? All in favor? Okay, that's everyone. Thank you. And that the rezoning application RZ 19-9 development variance permit application DVP 19-9. This is the proposal to rezone the property at 425 Stewart Street from single family to comprehensive development single family in order to facilitate the subdivision of the subject property into 2 single lots. And Marvin, I understand we're going to have a presentation from you.
And
So
could we
just
get
stand
a
by.
bit of clarification just before we go ahead? If we were to pass this as it's stated, that would include the owner having to put the sidewalks in?
Correct.
Correct?
Not pass it, not have the sidewalks, then you would pass the alternative.
Then there's an alternative. Okay.
So the planner.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was just going to repeat that. The planner said correct, and that we'd have to pass the alternative.
Did you get that, Pat?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's just getting ready for his presentation.
Yeah, it's just that when you read this presentation, I thought I understood it. Then I talked to Maureen, and then I thought I didn't understand it. And then I talked to a couple other people, and it's just kind of goes all over the place a bit. So.
Over to you, Marvin.
Purpose of the presentation is to talk about 2 of the more detailed aspects of the report. The number 1 being the pedestrian linkages, and then the proposed trees for retention. Yeah, I'm going to point to something, so I figure I'll. Okay, next slide, please. So on the pedestrian linkage, so when we did the analysis, what we looked at was Stewart Street. Stewart is quite unique. Church Street is quite a bit over to the west, and then you have Pritchard to the east. Pritchard being higher traffic volume. It does have a sidewalk, but it's higher traffic volume. It's arterial. So Stewart Street creates a linkage, north-south linkage, going from Comox Avenue and Balmoral all the way along the golf course and then up to Knoll. So it provides a nice linkage up to Knoll, and then from there you have Nootka and Church Street going to the neighborhoods to the north. At Dogwood, it actually does connect. It's got ready connection to Cottonwood Greenway, and that connects you into First Street and into Knoll. So a sidewalk on Knoll, and also on First Street straight to the crosswalk. And there you have Robb Road and the Comox Community Center as well, along with Village Park and the Francophone School. Part of what makes this area in general quite attractive is the mature vegetation, a lot of large canopy trees, and the narrow streets. So it makes it quite quaint, and it's currently got primarily low traffic volume. So the first slide, each of these diamonds, so that's where you're looking, the top of the diamond, the top of the triangle. So that's looking north along Stewart Street on Beaufort. Then 2 is, that's the walkway. So that's just between Balsam and right here. And then we start from the subject property looking south. So again, you got that narrower pavement width, right? A lot of mature trees. And then Dogwood Avenue is actually 9 meters already. So you got a wider street. And the Cottonwood Greenway is only a couple lots down, connection to Cottonwood Greenway. Next slide, please. So Cottonwood Greenway, that was recently constructed by the town, and then that connects up to 6, which is Church Street. So it connects right into the sidewalk there. There's no sidewalk, right into the crosswalk on the west side of Church. There is no sidewalk on that section of Church on the east side. And then similarly, looking north, it connects into Knoll Avenue on the sidewalk on the south side of Knoll. So there's quite a few linkages there. We're anticipating that, again, the character of it makes it very quaint to walk. It's very attractive, that will continue. And as we're seeing increased density in the town overall, in the surrounding neighborhoods, more people are going to want to walk that route. The next slide, please. So here, when we started looking at creating the west lot, so this is on Dogwood Avenue. So on this west lot, you have the 3 fir trees and the 1 spruce targeted for retention of your retention through covenant. Once you start trying to get outside of the drip line, which is the circles, there's very limited access left for the lot in terms of vehicle access to Dogwood Avenue. Generally, all of our zones are designed to have an allowance, clear allowance out of buildings where you can put a driveway for 2 cars side by side. And that allows primarily that allows for your secondary suite. So even if you build out your house, you have a garage, but you cover in the garage, you use a living space, you can still convert back and forth from secondary suite to no secondary suite. In this case, 2 parking stalls side by side is going to impose on the root zone. So it's been dropped down to require 1 parking space. And that, with a secondary suite, was not seen as conducive to a secondary suite in terms of on-site vehicle parking. And these tend to be smaller lots, so they're less attractive for secondary suites. So that's just a little background on the report, and happy to take any questions.
There. Okay. Thank you, Marvin. Do we have any questions from council? I see Councillor Grant, you had your button pressed.
No, I'm just leaving it on
Okay.
so I can bug you. And it's working.
Yeah. Any questions, Councillor Minions?
Yeah, it's a similar question to what Councillor Grant asked earlier, but I don't know if I caught the question on, do we have a very specific fund that these sidewalk money would sit in until it gets done in the kind of faraway future, or does it just go into general funds and then gets taken out of capital when they are done? I missed that kind of answer earlier.
It's supposed to be kept on until it's used to create the sidewalk on the property that it was taken from.
So the specific amount though is kept like in a ledger as far as what contribution was made for that specific project?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And it is feasible to have the property owner do one of the sides versus 2 of the sides as one of the alternate recommendations.
That's not listed in alternative recommendation 1, but that is possible, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bissinger?
Thank you. I'm first of all, I'm glad to see that we're retaining those trees. That's really awesome. I guess my question just to the sidewalks, like what's, the applicant was talking about $35,000 as a bond or to do the actual work. Is that an accurate number? And then I guess the question is, if we were to have the applicant put money aside or put a bond or do one of the sidewalks, what would the value be? And I guess the second question is, we just approved a subdivision on, I think it was Birch or Balsam just off of Pritchard. And I can't remember what we decided there and what that amount ended up being and if it ended up being cost prohibitive or what. So I don't know if you can just refresh our memory for that as to what we decided previously. I just don't want to be, I guess, unfair or unequitable towards different residents.
Shelley, please correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, there was on the lot on Birch that went across the fronted on 2 streets that the sidewalk requirement was maintained.
What?
We required sidewalk on both streets, both east-west streets.
Was the east-west street on Balsam, but the sidewalk already existed on Pritchard, so it wasn't taken for that.
Yeah, but it's Balsam and Birch, right?
Wasn't the corner of Balsam and Birch? I'm just trying to remember myself.
Yeah, his house was on Balsam, I believe. Right?
Yeah, it faced one of the roads and then it backed on the other.
Right.
And
oh, right.
yeah, I was on both.
So we did on both, correct? Yes. Yeah. Got my bearings. Yeah.
Councillor Grant.
Yeah,
So,
so I
well,
guess-
sorry, that
I-
wasn't-
Actually.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah,
And I think
Alex.
Pat was ahead of me too, so.
All right, so Alex, I'm sorry, were you finished with that?
Yeah, no, sorry. I just wanted to know like the dollar value if we were to do just like the one sidewalk for this applicant. What are we looking at? Just like half of 35, or are we going based on ratio of the length of the sidewalk, or what's the?
Ratio of the length. So that was a ballpark figure, just a real rough ballpark based on per meter, general per meter costs.
Okay, and then Councillor McKenna, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor. So I'm not in favor of the first recommendation. I am in favor of the alternative to the recommendation. And I think it's just because I see it as an unnecessary burden to the homeowner. I walk this area 3 times a week. I can't wrap around the fact that if somebody put in a sidewalk there, that's going to be a sidewalk that leads to nowhere for 30 years. And so, I do understand the value of sidewalks. I do think that it's important from a safety perspective, but I don't see if we make this homeowner do this project, I don't see the project getting finished. And so the other follow-up question I would have is, we've talked about a reserve fund that if a homeowner takes the cash option, I would like to see somewhere in our financial statements that shows the rest of these financial deposits that have happened in the past. Maybe there have been none. I find that hard to believe. So where do we restrict those funds? And so maybe that's a question for finance, but I'm definitely in favor of the alternative recommendation. Thanks, Marvin, for your presentation. It's a beautiful area. Walk there all the time, and thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Grant?
Yeah, I guess when I go up and down that neighborhood, I look and a lot of the houses are built right in the middle of the lots. So there's really not much opportunity to subdivide very many more lots off, except in that area where you might have a corner lot. None of those houses are getting to the age where they're tear down material yet. So I'm with you, Pat. I think you're 30, 40 years before you ever saw that starting to happen. And to have a little sidewalk in the middle of nowhere doesn't make any sense. It would make sense to me if we could take some cash in lieu and put it into a general sidewalk fund. But if it's just specifically for that place, I just don't see us ever doing it. So it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm with you on on the alternative recommendation as well.
Okay, thanks. I guess a question then to Marvin. So is that something that we can do, is start a reserve? So I guess this would be the second property now that, well, I'm not sure about the other one, but with this one here, that if we forego the sidewalk, saving the applicant X number of dollars, but we could take a percentage of that and put it in. Is that kind of I think that's the gist that I'm starting to hear, that we put away, because in 60 years from now, maybe we are going to put sidewalks, but we've given that opportunity up years earlier. So
I can seek clarification if you wish through a legal opinion, but generally, if you're going to take money for a purpose, you have to use it for the purpose. Yeah, so typically what I've seen in my career is you get development in an area. Usually it's densifying to some degree. It becomes a patchwork of getting bonding. And then it reaches a critical point whereby the public pressure for provision of the full service is there. And then the remainder that helps offset the total capital costs goes into it at that time. But if council, your legal ability is only to require the works. So the second that you're taking bonding, it's kind of a negotiated position. We can seek clarification of that if you wish.
right. And so if we were to take the money, so you're saying that we probably could not use it down the road, but could we use it for another sidewalk somewhere else?
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And the further you get away from the property,
Right.
the more tenuous the link,
Mhm.
right? But
if we had something across town that we're looking to connect and.
well, you could, yeah, I mean, you can argue that a lot of these are being done, would be done by general revenue, and therefore as development occurs, and then as long as it's used for sidewalk, at least
Right.
then you're tying it to the sidewalk.
Right,
And
that's
so
what
I
I'm thinking,
think that that definitely is an avenue worth exploring.
Mhm.
And we could likely have a response for you on that for the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grant?
Okay, so yeah, this is kind of a bit of an interesting area because now that we're really, I mean, we've never really seen a lot of infill in our community over the years. It's just starting to be the thing as we've gotten to our boundaries. And so I think we're kind of learning as we go here. We learned with the overhead wiring and with this, and I really don't want to, like, if we're going to encourage it, I don't want to make it so onerous that people aren't doing it because of our rules and regulations. Having said that, sidewalks are something that if they are expensive and we do them. So I'd like to see us actually look at this and see what kind of a policy we could come up with, where we come up with a number that you put in for sidewalks. I think in this particular case, having them do both sides to me is quite onerous. Although, there might be a number that makes sense that we just do on everyone if we could put it into a fund. And just make it really clear and not make it so onerous that it starts to give people heart palpitations as they're going here. So, I don't want to slow this proposal down because it's gone long enough. So I would still be in favor of alternative one or the alternative recommendation. But I think we need to actually get a proper procedure for how we're going to do this on these kinds of things. So if we're going to put a report together on it, I don't know that we need it for next meeting. I'd be happy to pass the alternate recommendation tonight on this one, and going forward, start just figuring out how we're going to do these so they're more streamlined.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying forego any monetary.
I'm going to say on this one to forego for a couple of reasons. Number one, we did sort of indicate that in the beginning that we would do that, and I think that 35,000 is a bit too onerous for this guy. And I guess the other part of this is if I could see that there was development coming down the streets on either side, like this was a really hot neighborhood and it was going to start happening, that might be something you'd want to look at that point. But I just don't see it in that neighborhood for a long, long time. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any other questions, comments from Councillor Bissinger?
Yeah, thank you. And I agree that maybe sidewalks aren't required. I guess the only thing I struggle with is with the other applicant on Pritchard. And I know it's a done deal, but we did require both sidewalks, and like Birch and Balsam are streets that go to nowhere. So it's even less of a through road than Stewart and Dogwood both are. So I guess that just doesn't sit well with me. So I'm not sure, if we are setting up a standard, if that previous subdivision can be revised, and if we can just have a standard going forward, like if we can just put a $10,000 per subdivision, and that covers the sidewalks or whatever, call it whatever you want, or pick a number that is affordable for residents. I mean, mind you, any resident that is subdividing their lot will likely make a decent amount of money by either selling the existing house with a lot or selling the new lot or whatever, right? So it's not like it's cost prohibitive, sure, but like big picture, like just in the past 6 months, we've seen houses go up 100 to 200,000. So, I'm not too concerned. I am, but I'm not, like $10,000 won't break the bank. For the very moment, whether we require that $10,000 once the lot is, subdivided or sold, I don't know if we can do like a 6-month lag to it or add it to the taxes somehow so they don't have to pay it up front before the lot is even sold or the house is sold. I think we need to consider that, but I just don't find it fair that just a month ago we required both sidewalks and there was a good reason for it, even though those streets were even less busy than Dogwood and Stewart are.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Bissinger. And Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, and I know we're all testing our memories tonight, but I think the difference in this is that there's an actual application for variance, and in the last one, the developer had no application for variance on those sidewalks.
I recall the variance, it was something to do with the
It was
corner.
on setback. If memory serves, the variance was for setback, and they had no issues on the sidewalks.
Okay,
But again, I'm testing my own
yeah,
memory.
okay.
So I think you can feel at ease, Councillor Bissinger, that you're creating equity in this.
No, like I appreciate that, but I just pulled up the developments variance permit and there are some changes to the sidewalks. And I know sidewalks were discussed with the previous applicant as well.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. Councillor Swift, did you have your hand up? You're mute. You're on mute.
I was just wondering, kind of piggybacking on Councillor Bissinger's idea, if there was some mechanism where the applicant could, it didn't have to come up with the money prior to selling the lot. I don't know if there's some mechanism that we could develop. So, you know, it's a lot of money to ask for somebody to come up with, but they are eventually going to make some money when they sell either the house or the lot. So I don't know if there's any mechanisms that we could develop if we were going to consider a policy that we might be able to build into it.
We're all pointing at the CAO.
Yeah, I would caution council, basically, if we were to go down that road, the municipality would be acting as a bank for the developer or the homeowner. If a homeowner is going through subdivision like this, they're creating a very valuable asset to which they can seek private financing to be able to pay for these costs and then recoup them at sale.
Yeah.
Councillor Grant?
Yeah, I think we're, again, going down this road where we're trying to build the thing while we're sitting here. And my rationale here was to pass it off to staff to come up with a proper policy on this, so we wouldn't be inventing it at the table. It leaves this particular applicant in a bit of a odd situation. And that was why I wanted to give him a pass on this one. You know, we don't have a motion on the table, and I'd be happy to make this motion and then we could discuss how we wanted to go forward. You could possibly add a monetary amount to this as you go. I think that, you know, if you're going to do that one side or a partial payment might be okay, but I still don't even know how we would do that yet. So that's why I wanted to go ahead with the alternative recommendation tonight and then get a proper policy put in.
Okay, and to the planner?
One point of procedure, so you have two separate applications. So one is the rezoning. So that's the rezoning for the property. The other one is the DVP. So should council grant first and second reading today, the next thing is to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing then is, we miss one, so you're looking at a month down the road for a public hearing. And then the matter comes up after the public hearing for consideration of adoption. In the meantime, the development variance permit is running parallel. They're not tied to each other. So you do have time, if you wish, to, so for example, to direct staff to come up with an alternative that allows for bonding equal to the length of the Stewart Street sidewalk. That should cut it down to what, about a third? And then we could report back and then you can see that and you can then decide whether or not you're interested in that motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in hearing that and in hearing all the discussion, I can't remember what he said. I'm getting too old, but
Yeah, what he said, yeah.
about what he said.
Yeah.
I would make that motion.
Okay,
I
so,
would second it. Not sure what he said, but I would second it.
so are we then, sorry, are we going to the alternatives to recommendation, allowing it go, or, okay, I'll let you say that again. Okay.
Okay.
Did you?
So what's being proposed is that we move forward.
Okay. We haven't made a motion yet.
Yeah, we haven't made a motion yet. So what's being proposed is that we would move forward with the rezoning application. and then move the development permit application or the development variance permit application to the next meeting. And then you can move those forward together at that point.
So we actually do have a motion on the table because Alex seconded, but it was what he said, which I can't remember what it was. So.
And so that was to move the development variance permit application to a further meeting. And then what Marvin was saying was that this isn't going to slow down the overall process because we have a rezoning application to go through as well.
Right. So we could move recommendations 1 and 2 and then provide direction to staff.
We have to provide a separate resolution saying
Yeah.
staff, in regards to the development variance permit, we wish to have something come out of the costing.
It was just-
The construction reduced. Sorry. We wish to have the construction reduced to only Stewart Street.
So right now, the motion on the floor is to move the development variance permit to a following meeting and have the information come back from staff.
Right. So
is that what we need to move to do what Marvin said?
It's been moved and seconded already.
okay. So then any discussion on that?
That's good, Amanda.
Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm super unclear trying to follow this bouncy
Yeah,
ball.
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I saw on the agenda is a recommendation from the CAO, an alternative recommendation, and I would like to put a motion forward to approve the alternative recommendation.
We've got a recommendation.
We already have a motion for recommendation 1 and 2. And it was moved in second, so we're discussing that. No? Sorry, I might be wrong. Let me.
No, we do not have a motion to approve 1 and 2. At least I didn't hear that.
So right now, the motion on the floor is to move the development variance permit application to the next meeting and have information come back from staff on council's ability to either require a smaller amount of bonding or different options for funding sidewalks. So that is the motion on the floor right now. If council were to pass that, you can still move recommendation number 1, which would be giving first and second readings to the zoning amendment bylaw.
Okay. Pat, are you okay with that?
Well, my understanding is if we make a motion, if we approve this motion, then we are discounting the alternative recommendation.
But what we're going to do is look at the sidewalk costing at the next meeting. So what we're doing is moving this forward so that we don't delay the public hearing. And then Marvin figures that if we were to put a cost on this and you just did Stewart Street, it would be about 1/3 the cost of what he's got now. So it goes back to kind of what Alex was saying, which was put a sum in for these things so that so we're treating everybody fairly and yet not making him pay for both sides.
So for discussion, can I add a wrinkle? What if it wasn't sidewalks? What if it was an amenity contribution for affordable housing or a contribution towards parks? Is that what we're going to discuss at the next meeting, or is it all the options?
Well, go ahead,
Or
Marvin.
are we only
Yeah,
going to talk about sidewalks?
we'll bring that over to the planner.
The that remains to be seen. If you pass the motion on the that Jordan mentioned on the instructions on the development variance permit conditions, then the next motion up for discussion would be first and second reading, followed by scheduling of a public hearing. If you, as part of those motions, wish to comment on something that like affordable housing, that's a condition of rezoning, then you'll be free to do so.
You should run for politics, Marvin.
Okay, so do we have any other questions or comments on that? So just to make it clear, what is the motion that we have that we're voting on? CAO, do you have it handy? Oh, sorry.
So the motion that we're voting on is to bring forward the development variance permit application in order for council to reconsider different options for obtaining either smaller amounts of sidewalks or an amount of money in lieu of sidewalks.
So that's the motion. Do we have a first and seconder for
We
that?
did all that.
We did all that. Any other questions on that? All in favor? And opposed? One opposed. Okay, thank you. And so then we'll go on to 2 about the virtual public hearing.
We have to do 1 and 2, don't we?
Okay,
So
so
I'll move, can I move both at the same time, or? I'll move 1
one that
for first and
Comox,
second reading.
that the Comox
Second.
zoning amendment bylaw 1950 be given first, second reading. So there's a seconder. Do we have any questions or comments on that?
Discussion.
Councillor McKenna.
So it still says to me that if we approve this Comox zoning amendment bylaw 1950 be given first and second, if we approve first and second reading, we're saying we want the money for these sidewalks in its entirety. So what I heard, I think, from the planner is that on third reading, we'll have an opportunity to discuss it one more time.
That's correct. So
Okay.
you'll have, first and second reading, we'll move this through the process. It'll also allow the virtual public hearing to be scheduled. And then council will have the ability to make amendments to it prior to passing third reading.
It's
And
been
in
my
the-
very short experience on council that by the time it gets to third reading, it's very difficult to make changes. Not impossible, but it's been my experience to see third readings go faster. So I will stand by my vote against. So there you go.
Okay. Thank you. And Councillor
I
Grant.
guess the difference in this case is that we'll get a report as to what a reasonable number is and whether or not we can actually put it into a general fund rather than in front of that sidewalk. Because I'm with you. If you're going to take the money and then have it sit there for 50 years waiting for that street to get done, then I won't be in favor of that. But if we could wrap it into a general fund where we could use it and the sum was reasonable, then I would be more open to that. So this is a bit of an unusual one.
Councillor, McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, just one more point for discussion. You know, I agree with you, Councillor Grant, and I think what would be very interesting is if there was a fund that could be directed by the developer, or in this case, the homeowner. And we got to remember this is a homeowner. He's not a developer, and developers take chances all the time with their money. And I think this is a different situation. But what would be interesting is to have a fund or a variety of funds that amenity contributions could be directed by the developer or the homeowner in this case. Let's say to a fund for sidewalks, for culture, for parks, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
we have any other further questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor of number 1? And opposed? We have 1 opposed, okay. And 2, that a virtual public hearing in respect of Comox zoning amendment bylaw 1950 be scheduled for April the 7th via Zoom. So we have a mover. Do we have a seconder on that?
Second.
Seconder, any questions or comments on that? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Clear as mud. Okay. Yeah. Just give me one moment to get my spot here. Okay, so now we're down to recreation programmer hours increase. This is to provide council with information to increase recreation programmers hours per week. And we do have a recommendation that council approve for inclusion in the 2021 financial plan, an increase in the recreation programmers hours per week from 30 part-time to 35 full-time for the 2 regular recreation programmer positions. We have a
Second.
mover, seconder, any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And we will go down to correspondence. This is from Chair Jesse Kettler request for approval, regional transportation planning memorandum of understanding. So do we want to have a further discussion on this, CAO? The general feeling is that perhaps this may be not needed for our participation in this. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so our thoughts are that we work closely with all of our neighboring communities on projects of mutual interest, especially when they're in the areas that border our communities. We also pull together as groups on projects where all communities have different interests. So we feel that this MOU may require additional staff time that will stretch our resources and would be better spent working on our own projects. And again, where we do have projects of mutual interest, we will continue to work in a positive manner with all of our neighbors.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. So do we just want to receive this and, okay, move receipt, seconder?
For discussion, or I guess
Yeah,
second.
so we haven't seconder and for discussion, Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So, what is the intent of the request if we're going to just receive it for information and we're not going to participate in the MOU, obviously? Is that what you're saying, CAO Wall? You don't want to sign it?
That's correct. It's our thought that the system that we have going right now is adequate in order to ensure proper communication and cooperation. And that's, so yeah, I would say that what you've just said is a correct summation.
So we could just, okay, do you have a follow-up, Councillor McKenna? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I respectfully disagree with your opinion, just because I think we've shown a history that all the municipalities don't work together enough. Whether this is the right MOU or not, I don't know. But I would like to know more about, the intent of the MOU and why it was initially created. And so, maybe I have to pursue that with Ms. Kettler, but yeah, I just see the municipalities need to forge a relationship to work together. And I see this as an opportunity to do that on this one topic. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks. And I saw Councillor Minion's hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo something similar to Councillor McKenna. I think that being that there's other parties to this, like the school district and the city of Courtenay, I just would like a little bit more information, which we can get outside, but I think it's important that we have the conversation at council with what the intent is, who signed it, what would the repercussions of us not signing it be? Is that a signal that we're not willing to work together on this? So I understand we have the MOU in front of us, but just a little more of a dialogue discussion, maybe at one of our strategic meetings, if possible, on this.
Yeah, I got the gist of what you're saying. That the microphone is it's quite kind of garbled here, but okay, thank you for that. So do we have any, Councillor McGowan, do you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would definitely like more information. We've been working with them on the regional transport collaboration for a little while. I know that we definitely have a lot of work to do when it comes to active transportation and transportation all over, getting from municipality to different districts. I was not heading into this meeting thinking that we were just going to, not participate in it. So I would definitely like to have more conversation around that. At this point, I think we need to have as much collaboration with other municipalities, especially on things like this that everybody is equally invested in. I don't know that now is the time to not participate in collaborative work.
Okay, thank you. Do we any other comments on this? So on receipt, all in favor? And opposed?
So I think, you're voting to receive this. I don't know if I'm just very confused still for point of discussion. Why would we not participate in this?
From what I was hearing was that I think three of you were going to go out independently, talk to some of the people involved. That's what I was taking. So that's why I thought we were moving to receive this.
Well, to me, going out independently feels like we're fracturing in half. And so that wasn't my intent. My intent in this open discussion is to find out why we wouldn't sign this MOU. And it seems fairly like, I think I'm surprised, as is, it sounds like Councillor McGowan, possibly Councillor Minions. I'm not going to speak for any other councillor. I thought this would be of course we would sign this and let's move forward working together. So I'm actually, I feel like there's something else at play here that I'm not at liberty to. And so, you know, failing that, if somebody wants me to make a motion to sign this, I will, but I just would like to hear more, maybe from Mayor or CAO, as to why we wouldn't sign this.
If you'd like to make a motion, we can go ahead with that. I think staff is looking for some direction on this. This was a letter that was sent, so we brought it out for everyone to review. And so we're having some good fulsome discussion on it. And if normally we take these, we move for receipt, then we get direction from a councillor that we would like to get a report, a staff report or something like that. So I did not hear that. But backing up, that's what I'm hearing. So I do see Councillor Minion's hand up.
Hear me on this mic, okay?
Sorry, was that?
Can you hear me okay, Your Worship?
We can make it out, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, Pat kind of echoed what I was thinking there, but I don't believe this was the first MOU that came through on this. And I thought that it was something that had come before us in a different drafted format, and not signing it was not what I thought the intent for the meeting was tonight. So I just echo what Pat McKenna said, or Councillor McKenna, sorry. I would move that we at least get a staff report back on this and have a council discussion with so far 3 of the 7 of us wanting to hear more about it. I don't think it makes sense to go and fracture off and ask independently. So I would move that if we can get a staff report with the pros and cons and the intent laid out, it would be helpful.
Okay,
or
great.
Deep
Thanks.
dive into the strategic meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion. So Councillor Swift, are you seconding that? Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry.
I'll second it if it's the motion, but I
Yeah.
was just a comment.
Okay, so we have a seconder, so now go ahead and comment.
I guess we're all trying to rely on our memories, and I just assumed that we would also be assigning this tonight. I think one of our issues, as I recall, at our table was the time that it might take from staff. So maybe we just need to get more information. It's my understanding, unless I'm confusing it with a different agreement, that we would sign on to it, but we wouldn't be necessarily sending the staff along to each and every meeting.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any other questions or comments on that? Councillor Bissinger?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if we need like a staff report on this letter. Can we not just write a response back to Director Jessie Kettler and ask her what the time involvements are, and then say we're interested in agreement to signing up? Sometimes we might send staff, sometimes not, sometimes elected officials, and then just move on that way.
Yeah, we do have a motion though for the staff report from Councillor Minion. So that's what we're speaking. We could vote on that, defeat it, take it somewhere else. So
I guess my question is what, I just don't understand what the staff are gonna, well, I guess it depends who the staff is, but like, do the staff know more than we do? Or I guess part of that motion, they will get more information from CBRD.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, Councillor Swift and talking with the CAO is that this will take a considerable amount of time away from staff, and we are working with them anyway, but the CAO, maybe you want to explain?
Yeah, so we're just seeking direction on what council wants to do here. This is, I believe, the 4th time we've brought this to council, and council's had a presentation from the regional district as well on this item. So we're looking for how council wants to move forward. We have a number of official ways and regimented ways that we are already working on these items with the regional district. For example, the regional growth strategy, and the meetings that we have there. We have transportation meetings as well. So what staff is looking at is just another meeting where we need to pull one of our senior managers out to attend. And with this, there's likely going to be pulling one of our senior managers or two of our senior managers out of working on the town of Comox to go to meetings where most of, or, you know, in some cases, it might be very relevant to what is happening in Comox. In some cases, it might be that only 10% of the meeting is relevant to what is happening in Comox. So right from our point of view, it's just a consideration of the staff time, which we feel is has a number of avenues for collaboration with the committees that we already sit on with the region. But having said that, council brings up a good point, and this is why this letter is addressed for your decision and not ours, is what is the political ramifications for not signing this? What is the, what are people going to see that as a signal of? And that's why this is a council decision, whether or not you'd like staff to participate and not an administrative decision.
Okay, yeah, and the way I see it is, you know, the regional district, they have adequate personnel. Courtney has adequate personnel. One of the challenges that, you know, we are a little thin on our personnel, so to drag them to that and what value we get. So that, I guess, really is what is up in for debate. Councillor Bissinger, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, it talks about a TAC here, and it says they'll meet twice a year for such committee. So I don't see that as super exhaustive. And as well, I don't know if there's other meetings on top of the TAC. Is there no way that we can just read agendas and see if it's related to Comox and then decide to send staff for the off chance it does have to do with us, and when it doesn't, then we don't? Like, you know, do we have that discretion?
Okay, thanks. Any other questions on that? So we do have a motion. I mean, we could defeat that motion and then we could just stick to having the memorandum signed, and then we could stick handle it as we go along. If we do have the staff to go to these meetings down the road, or maybe, you know, they report back to us to fill us in, that could be a nice compromise as well. So what we'll do is we'll take the vote right now for Councillor Minions. If we defeat that, we can go back to the signing of the memorandum. So all in favor of Councillor Minions having a staff report on this? All in favor? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so all right, that's carried. So we'll have a staff report on that. And opposed? Well, I was going to oppose it because I thought, from what I was hearing, that people wanted this moved along. So, but no, we'll take the staff report, and I thought we would just maybe sign it off today. But good, yep, we got some direction from council on that one. Okay, and now for something completely different. We are going to go to let's see, reports from members of council. And let's go on the top left of my screen, and that would be Councillor Swift.
Okay.
Ken paid me to put you first.
Yeah. I'll make it quick. Sewage Commission, as you probably all know, the conveyance route has been selected. And we're going for an unphased project of $73 million. So there you go. Water Committee, Wendy Morin was elected as the chair. And of note that they're going to go to stage 3 water restrictions, March 15th to the 21st, so that they can fix the water transmission pipe. So it's kind of an unusual stage to be in at this time of year, but it won't last too long. At the board meeting, the regular board meeting at the CBRD, of course, economic development contract was terminated. The service review is going to continue, and it was deemed as being a useful way to figure out what to do with all the pieces of that service and how to move forward. And lastly, the Filbert meeting I attended on Monday. And of course, they're struggling financially with no festival, no weddings, no events to keep them solvent. So they're probably going to be running a deficit budget this year. A couple of high notes were the gift shop's doing quite well, and they're going to offer a private shopping by appointment opportunity to go through the gift shop. So up to 4 people can make an appointment together and have the gift shop to themselves. Another high note for them is that the summer kitchen has a contractor this year. So there's a new fellow, Dubois Catering, and he hopes to open in early April. I think there's going to be some variations in the menu as he works through the growing pains of figuring out what works there. They're going ahead with the Grape Arbor reconstruction. It's in really poor condition. And the thing that's making that viable right now is that it's funded by Rotary. So they're getting their drawings finalized, and as soon as they have their building permit, they'll get started on that. And lastly, their legacy tree program is really coming together, and they hope to launch it on Earth Day, April 22nd. So corporate sponsorships will be $1,000, personal ones $500. And the term of the contract will be 5 years. So there will be more details on that to follow. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan, and then we'll go to Bissinger.
All right. So I attended the coldest night of the year walk with my family, and that was wonderful to see people out there and how much money was raised. Spoke to a local youth, Lister DeVita, about the Green New Deal and climate change mitigation in Comox. I attended a UBCM childcare webinar presentation about the guide that was recently released, and it has a lot of really, really good pointers and things and guidelines that we can look at to hopefully set the stage for more childcare and more accessible childcare here in the Valley or in Comox. I was able to attend about 10 minutes of the Welcoming Communities Collaboratory before I had to go pick up my kid from school because he was sick. The CAMS board meeting, the Museum and Archives, they're doing well there. They are still remaining closed due to COVID, but their staff is coming in and working regularly and still doing archives work and looking into the future. And I attended the Comox Valley Social Planning Society meeting this month, where we were working through some of the poverty reduction strategy questions for the CVRD consultation process. And that was really good. I think we got some great information there. And that is what I did.
Thanks, Councillor Bissinger, then McKenna.
Thank you. I attended the hospital board meeting. So we discussed budget, passed the budget, and then a motion was put forward for looking at different innovative funding options for transient care and rural care hubs. So there will be a staff report on that coming soon. And I discussed with some residents about the Anderton Road rezoning and development, as well about wood stoves. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Councillor McKenna.
Thanks, Mayor. So also attended the coldest night of the year. We did our walk in snowshoes at Mount Washington. It was very cool. I just wanted to give a shout out to Councillor Minions for being our team captain and doing such a great job, and to our valuable team member, Chief Schreiner, who helped drive so many valuable donations to the charities that really exceeded. I also attended 2 webinars, one with the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Aaron O'Toole. Was quite interesting through the Chamber of Commerce. Very interesting webinar. It wasn't hugely attended, but he was quite interesting. Also attended a webinar with Frank McKenna and Annette Verschuren, 2 very prominent business leaders in Canada, and that was interesting. I also attended the Community Justice Center board meeting, and today I attended to the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness meeting, and some interesting grant opportunities there that they'll be calling on the municipalities to partner on. And that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Minions.
Thank you. Pretty much they've all been mentioned, but the coldest night of the year walk, which was a nice outdoor kind of team event apart, the hospital board meeting, the Sewage Commission, and attended one of the electoral area meetings for a local group where they had some civil rights lawyers talking about some of the things that are going on in the US and how it applies here. And that was a really interesting couple hours. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Councillor Minions, maybe you might need a microphone next time. It is kind of clipped on this end. So from my end here, I had a couple EOC, Emergency Operations Center meetings. We had an emergency EOC meeting just the other day to talk about what's been going on in the schools and the messaging. And then we saw Chair Kettler put her recent message out on the regional district page, just reminding folks of proper procedures and where we're at. And, you know, the analogy is that we're in a marathon, we're in the last little bit, we really got to give her, and we'll get through this here. Had some planning discussions. I had an iced tea meeting, met with some citizen, just a couple COVID protocols in place about the Providence building there. Had a meeting with the CAO and Haley Dewhurst with the BIA, talked about some issues there. I did attend the in-camera portion of the regional district's meeting as it pertained to economic development. I did 2 Rotary presentations, and those were well received and talked about the town. I actually started one at 7 o'clock this morning. I started on Zoom, and so here we are at 7:30, and I'm just finishing my 5th Zoom meeting for the night. And I did a coldest night of the year walk with the rest of the group. And again, I too want to thank Councillor Minions and Chief Schreiner for helping get this all together and making a great donation to a worthwhile cause. So I did have some public questions that did come in this morning. There was.
I guess I don't get to have my report.
Councillor Grant.
Sorry about that.
I won't bore you.
The guy who's right in front of me too.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Just before you do that, the only thing I wanted to mention, I did Sewer Water Rec Commission RD coldest night of the year, which, by the way, Mocha says thanks. She had a great walk. But on the sewer, the thing that we need to wrap our heads around is the route as it comes through Comox, and whether we want to run it down Comox Avenue to Ellis, or you could come down and go down Rodello and down Beaufort. And the down Comox Avenue to Ellis may have your downtown shut off for several months at a time if we go that route. So just something to keep your thoughts on as we're moving forward on that.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, and yeah, the only one in the room here, and I couldn't see you. So regarding the public questions, I did get 6 questions from the public that they're quite specific, and they're really aimed at the Providence facility. So I think I would be putting our staff in a position to answer them. So what I'll do, as I mentioned to Jane, I will send these to Jane. I'll CC everybody here, and then we'll get a response, and I'll share that with the folks who sent those questions in. I have nothing further. So thank you very much, folks, for sticking through with this one, and motion to adjourn. All in favor? Good, thank you.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night.